Hello and welcome to Sina Bounce Live. We are joined with Carol Sargent and we've been talking a lot about all sorts of things about, what we can do to support people with dementia. And today is a big one. What are we touching on today?
Yeah, it's a subject that I think is all too common, where everything seems to be fixed by giving us pills. And is that the right way forward? In some cases, maybe, but not in every case. So we want to talk about that, about looking at alternative methods. And Carol, welcome. You were really strong about this subject. And I know you've got some real strong history on this subject as well. And I know that you can talk about it way better than we can. So let's talk about it. What have you got to say around the subject?
Well, I'm a scientist by profession. I am Dr. Carol Sargent. I have a PhD. I am passionate about science and spent over 20 years of my life in drug discovery with the firm belief that finding new medications were the way to treat people. But, when my mom and my mother-in-law got dementia, and when you use all the knowledge and skills you have as a scientist, where you have to develop a hypothesis, work out how to measure it, any beneficial effects and any side effects, and then you start applying it to something with dementia, when you realize that, gosh, first of all, it's an umbrella term for hundreds of different diseases that all affect brain function. So really, there's not going to be a magic bullet that's going to cure dementia. That's the first thing. Then if you ask yourself, how many diseases have been cured? Actually, you'll not find very many diseases that are cured. The use of the word cure is probably misplaced for most things. You can reduce symptoms or you can delay things, but a cure is a tough thing to describe. I really and truly think for dementia, when really it's the people nearest and dearest that identify changes in that individual, the individual doesn't themselves. And then when you've lived with people with dementia and you understand the difficulties they can have in describing, side effects, things like pain, a classic example that, we learned the hard way as a family is people's behavior. If they get a urinary or a chest infection with somebody with dementia, their behavior can change dramatically. They can get really, really anxious and very unpredictable, and that's because they have an infection and they can't describe where that pain is. So when you start thinking about how you develop a drug, then my gosh, it's really, really complicated. And on the other hand, the UK led the way in person-centered care for dementia, recognizing that that's the way you reduced anxiety, you induce, the psychotic drugs that were used a lot. It's about that individual. And we seem to have this almost obsession about finding a cure. And, there should be, drugs that affect different symptoms. Absolutely. And there are for many symptoms with dementia. But actually, there's an awful lot of things that you don't need a drug. That it is about, things like cognitive behavior therapy, which is still clinical, but it's not a drug. But, a lot of people, particularly older adults, that sort of treatment, is that really going to help me? The doctor's only sent me to somebody. And equally, if you look at, other countries where, they actually do prescribe, acupuncture, as a way to relax people, mud baths, in the Pyrenees in France, that there's a more open-minded approach, that it doesn't just have to be a tablet that your doctor gives, that can really make a difference?
I should be on a lot of medication, right? As we know, and I tend to use alternative and complementary therapies, massage being massive, and I have had a hugely positive result to being massaged with my condition, and also being active. And I mean, I've got no scientific evidence that because I'm active, my condition has been slowed down. But I have got obvious case studies and circumstances of people that have not been as active and have then later lost limbs or limb loss at a very early stage. So I'm sure there's a to and a fro, and I'm saying this very delicately because I know people who've got CRPS that are very active and have lost their limbs, as I know people who have got CRPS who are not very active and haven't. So there's always, either side of the benchmark. But for me personally, I know that during lockdown, for example, when I wasn't very active, my CRPS was horrific. And then as soon as I started becoming active again, it improved. So I think there's a lot to be said for what you're saying there, Carol.
Yep. And I think it's not about one or the other, as you're highlighting. It's about a balance and trying, lots of different things. I was watching, there's a documentary on Netflix about different parts of the world where they have a larger number of centurions, and they were looking at, what were the things that made them live longer. And, a lot of those are non-drug related. And I think, often as the Western society, we get a bit lazy in what we can do ourselves. And again, it may be an inappropriate thing to say, but, for, type 2 diabetes, as an example, a lot of that can be down to your own diet. But the assumption is, you go, you get a pill, and equally, we've developed as society pills that mean you can, be, less diligent with your diet. Yeah. So, it's all about taking some responsibility when you can, for your own health. It's like, as I say, I've had one hip replaced. I've been told I need 2 knees in the other hip. But rather than go straight in and get the next knee, I've taken the approach of doing rehabilitation therapy, massage therapy and everything like that, so that I can be confident when I absolutely need that next joint, everything is ready and is functioning as well as it possibly can. And
so you give yourself the best possible chance, right?
I think that's so important about what we talk, because we are a nation of wanting to fix, and the easiest way to fix would be to, just take this and it will help you. And I think that's why this is so important, especially coming from someone like yourself who's been in that industry and understand that industry. And I think we need to sort of look, and if you're looking after people that have dementia and so on, looking at what they respond to rather than just putting another pill and another pill and another pill.
Simple lights, smells, conversation, textures, birds singing, it doesn't matter. We've got very much into our natural oils. And I used to take anti-acid tablets all the time. I haven't taken now. I take peppermint oil.
I saw somebody the other day buying Gaviscon, and I wanted to stop them and say, just buy peppermint oil.
So much better. We've got to use good peppermint oil. It's such a strong.
But not everyone is going to be open to it. So some people just want a pill. Some people,
some people like a good pill.
Yeah, and it's finding out about the individual again, isn't it? What they respond to well and what works.
So I have to end the show. I'm sure you're fed up hearing me say this. We we're victims of jumping into rabbit holes, and certainly about subjects that we're strong about with our guests. But it has been brilliant having Carol on the show. So, Carol, when we're talking about this as a particular subject, okay, and I think we need to be a little bit sensitive about it, okay, which is not my strong point. But when we're talking about, you know, the magic pill, which doesn't always necessarily exist, what can we give our listeners to take away with them? What can we give them to get their minds thinking in a different way?
Well, what I would say is think if there are other approaches that you can take, you know, find out more about what your particular ailment is.
Yeah.
Is a medicine the only route? And I think it's also thinking about the cost of that medicine. You know, if you look at, you know, our NHS service, how much it costs and how long we continue to take drugs without necessarily thinking, do I still need them? You know, it's really thinking, can I do anything myself to keep, you know, to make me healthier? And just not assume it's somebody else's responsibility.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
That was, John, I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to end the show right there. Carol, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on the show. My brain is looking to explode because I've got loads of people that I think you should speak to. But it has been fantastic to get a little bit of an insight from you, because this is actually the first time, even though you're a member of Seen Abounds, this is the first time we've met. So for me, this was an education. Thank you very much for that. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't taken a golden nugget from the conversations that we've had over the last couple of episodes with Carol, then, well, I've got nothing left for you, because there was some amazing bits of knowledge in there that we wanted to tap into. So a huge thank you to Carol. Amazing thank you, Charlotte. To you all, we will see you very, very soon. Take care. Till next time. Goodbye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.